5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, how you doing? Corey here, the photo and video guy, coming back at you today with a brand new video. Sorry, it's been a while since I've uploaded a video, guys. I've been trying to put things in the queue to go ahead and work on. I've been promising you guys a lot of different videos like that. But today is a little bit different, a little bit special. It's a sneak peek / preview of the new Panasonic AG-CX350. This is a prosumer camera from Panasonic, a brand new one. And let me tell you off the bat, this camera is nothing consumer at all. It is nothing but pro. Even though Panasonic puts this under the prosumer category for churches, corporates, stuff like that, to me, there's nothing consumer about this camera whatsoever in my book. It has nothing but pro quality features that you won't probably find maybe in a $10,000 camera and up. They have the price tag on this thing a little over $3,000. For what you get in this package I'm about to explain to you and describe to you, it's 10 times worth the investment in my book. I mean, you're getting everything that you would find in a $10,000 and up camera. That's how good I think this camera is. And it's hard to impress me when it comes to cameras. I've seen a lot of cameras, worked with a lot of different cameras, and to check off more than 5 boxes in my book to impress me that much, it says a lot. So, all right, so let's start with the specs. Everyone loves the specs here. So the specs is going to be boost a 4K sensor. It's like 3800 by 4200 around there. It's about 4K UHD, 422 10-bit 4K, and obviously it has 1080p in there as well, at 422 at 10-bit as well. Interesting caveats to it is it has a new Hev C Codec, also known as referred to as H.265. That boosts a 4K signal 420 at 10-bit, about 150 megabits. In 4K 10-bit 422, this camera can really go up to 400 megabytes. That's usually at 60 frames per second. 30 frames per second drops you down about 150, 200, I think, around there. Now, that being said, you're going to have faster cards than what you normally have at this point. Just keep that in mind when you're thinking about it. The cool thing is, this camera has not one, but two, I repeat, two SD card slots, which is nice. I asked the Panasonic rep, Wes Carr, if you can go ahead and, record 4K on one card and SD on the other card, or 4K or 1080. He said, no, you can't. But you can still also do a simultaneous backup, which is nice. The caveat to this, which I really, really love, is you are able to not only record internally at 4K, you're also able to output all at the same time via HDMI and also SDI. Yes, I said that correct. You can record internally while you're outputting an HDMI and SDI signal, all three at the same time. That is awesome. The great thing about it too is, even though the SDI signal is 3G, all you have to do if you want to get a 4K SDI signal, convert it into a 6G, take the 4K HD SDI, run it through a Blackmagic mini converter box, which is their mini converter SDI 6G it is. Take that HDMI feed, run it into that mini converter, and it outputs a 4K SDI signal. That's cool. That's really, really awesome. Also, what's awesome about this camera is going back to Hev C Codec. I'll refer to it as the H.264 codec, or H.265 codec. I refer to it as 6.5 just for abbreviance purposes, or H.265. The H.265 codec, even though, sure, it's only a 420 bit, it's still 10-bit. And one of my coworkers chroma keyed. It was awesome. Just to show you how new this camera is. And you have to remember, it's a 1-inch sensor, and also it's a brand new processor. So this camera really stands alone. This is not a predecessor to one of the other smaller lineups. This is a totally different lineup of cameras they are creating with a new sensor, new processor. Everything's new in this. To me, In the previous 1080p cameras we have at the shop in the studio, we had some frozen, some fake fruit, as it were, plastic fruit. She said, when our editor was chroma keying it, she said, usually when we chroma key this, those greens and those pineapples and apples and stuff like that, they would totally be blown out. You can't bring them back at all. She had no issue chroma keying the HEVC, slash H.265 codec in chroma key, even though it's a 420 bit. I know there's always the same between 422 versus 420 as far as green screen chroma keys like that. This file handled it freaking awesome. Even Wes Carr, the Panasonic rep himself, was freaking awesome. He was very, very curious about that. So we did that, which is awesome. I mean, this camera, I cannot rave enough about this camera. The price point is right where it should be, but everything you get in there is freaking insane. So it's a 24 millimeter at the wide end, and at the telephoto end, it goes to pretty much almost 500 millimeters. That's a lot. So it's 20 time optical zoom, all glass, and I believe it's Leica who makes the lens for this, since it's a fixed lens. And that's all 4K. Now, here's the interesting thing, and it's really, really good, I think. Usually, you have those digital zooms a lot of times, or it's like gives you an extra punch or two. It gets all grainy and gets funky and just doesn't handle the resolution very well. This camera, it takes it from a 500 millimeter essentially up to almost an 800 millimeter zoom. So it's going from a 20 times zoom factor to 32 times zoom factor, which is called intelligent zooming, I think it is. And that you can only do in 1080p. And I did that. It was nice. It was awesome. It didn't give you a whole lot of range. It gave you a good additional, if you needed, really, if you're back in the room of a corporate room, you needed a shot, it would get you there. Definitely. No doubt about it. And the cool thing about this, it's a built-in 5-axis image stabilization. For pans, tilts, also it's handheld. And the one thing that's kind of the secret in this camera, I think, other than the things I've mentioned so far, and I'm pretty sure everyone would agree with me, and I even told the Panasonic rep this too. I'm like, look, for years, these particular type of cameras, the EVFs have been just not usable. And I told them, it goes across Panasonic's line, Sony, Canon, JVC. The EVFs have never been usable. The screen in there has been so small. And I was very, very hesitant about that. I'm like, I saw the EVF and I'm like, oh, great, here we go, another small freaking image in this thing. I put my eye on that thing. It is 10 times bigger. It is actually usable. It is sharp. I was blown away. I told Wes, I'm like, dude, this is like one of the best things I've done. Other than the 4K, given the consumer a usable EVF, that's just icing on the cake. Wow, yeah. So it's an awesome freaking camera. This thing really impressed me, considering for the price point and what all you get in this godforsaken camera, man. What all you get in here, you would thought you were paying for like a $10,000 camera. No, you're only paying a little over $3,000 camera. A little $3,000. This thing is remarkable. I mean, it's impressive. It really, really is. And again, it's hard for me to be impressed about a camera nowadays. A lot of cameras come and they have a little shortfall to them. Not every camera's perfect, but this is pretty much almost spot on. This is 99.9% perfect, I think. This camera is, for what all it gives you and the price point and everything. Oh, cool thing about it is it has built-in ND filters, which is nice, which is always a plus. The one thing you'll notice is the menu structure is obviously a little bit different than previous Panasonics. So it definitely takes a little bit getting used to. So, for example, certain things, it would be in the camera section, or now in the system section. Other things have been kind of in the system section, or now in the camera section. So, obviously, getting used to the menu structure is going to be time-consuming in a way. But once you get it, I think it's easy for you, because they do have a quick access menu, which is nice. Also, what's the other benefits I'm thinking of here? Oh, yeah, slow motion. Why not slow motion? Slow motion goes 1 frame a second in 4K, all the way up to 60 frames per second in 4K. Same thing with GH5. That's the same thing. Also, in 1080p, 1 frame a second, all the way up to 120 frames a second. So essentially you get everything in a GH5 in this camera. And let me say, the colors in this camera, especially in the green areas, greens are always tricky sometimes, especially when it came to Panasonic, and I think Sony and Canon are kind of a little bit in there too. The greens are really freaking nice, really, really natural. The colors in there are natural. When we shot the other day, let me make a point here. I'm not able to show any footage. Two reasons. One, I don't think I can. Two, I don't have the card with me. I'll put stills at the end of this video for you guys, some behind the scenes stills for you guys. The colors out of this thing, and we shot it this past Thursday. It was very overcast day. Tiny bit of sun, but it was just overcast. And the colors on the building and the plants popped. I mean, really popped. Color science in this thing is 10 times better than from what I remember using Panasonic cameras back in the day when I had my AG-CX350. It's just gotten so much better. The one thing you'll see, they have HDR, also as H-Log. That's kind of HDR / film log in a way, to where it's more on the HDR side as far as more contrast, but Wes said it's able to also retain the high dynamic range. Now, he couldn't tell me exactly what the base ISO was. I know everyone wants to know what a base ISO of a camera is at this point. That's kind of tricky. Now, the f-stops, it goes at a f3 no, 2.5? Trying to remember, sorry guys. Yeah, f2.4, 2.5 around there, all the way to like a 4.5. So a really, really good range in that. You can open it up. I think it depends on where you are in the zoom. You either go to a 2.5, 4.5 around there. It's still really, really good. The dB is negative 3 dB. It goes all the way up to actually 24 dB. Now, when we were getting into the dBs and testing that low light situation out, it started to get really grainy, noisy in the 12, 13 dB range, which doesn't surprise me as much in that. I mean, it's still usable, but obviously you get up there, you get a lot more noise, but I think it's still be usable around 12 or 13 dB, I think it is. I want to make sure I'm missing it. It has two cold shoe. It has a mount, 3/4 mount, 1/8 inch mount, I believe, right in between, in the middle of the camera itself and the handle area. The handling of this camera and where the grip is really, really good, really balanced where it should be. The zoom rocker on this bad boy is really awesome. The zoom function in and out is really intelligent, really smooth. The zoom rings, zoom, focus, and iris, those are really, really smooth. Obviously, with the focus ring, it's an ever spinning wheel. There's no hard stops, but it's a little bit better. It's definitely improved as far as the spinning rings of death, as we sometimes call it in this industry. It's gotten better. It really has. And you can definitely, considering it's a 1-inch chip in there, you can get some pretty good freaking shallow depth of field. I tested that when we had it Thursday. I really wanted to see how much bokeh you can get out of this thing, and it was pretty freaking good. I mean, to me, the 1080p footage, to me, actually looked much sharper than our previous cameras we have currently in the studio. And I think a part of that is because it's a brand new chip, brand new image processor, brand new, everything in the camera is all new. So I think that's why I had a tiny bit more sharpening to it, which is really, really good. It handled different lighting situations really well in the auto white balance area. It has your 2 XLR inputs, which is nice. Menus are easy to get to. The cool thing is you have your bars up top, so if you need run bars, you have that. You have your time code out. And the cool thing, I think, and this is always small things, is remember always on the HDMI, SDI, the things on the outside, you always get the rubber covers for it. I really hate that crap. But now on this one, Panasonic gave you hard plastic covers to cover it, open it up. That was really awesome of them, really smart of them in that regard. What else about the camera, man? I can tell you. I can go all day probably, but I think I'll be saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over. Yeah, check it out. Again, you'll see still photos at the end of this video. Check out B&H. There's a couple of reviews. Adorama has a review on it. B&H has a review on it. Both video reviews. I think one of the person has a sneak peek review on it. I think it comes out in March. March is, I think, the time frame at this point, from what I gather and what I've heard so far. To me, if you're a freelancer, you're a solo shooter, you do corporate, you do different type of indie films with not a lot of big budget, or you do web videos. I think in general, this camera is definitely worth the investment, worth the price, and this would definitely give you a lot of longevity for sure. It is a really awesome camera. Again, it's hard for a camera to impress me, but this one really freaking does. Considering it's marked in the prosumer lineup, this is not a prosumer camera. This is definitely a very, very pro camera. And hats off to Panasonic, man. They've done a really good job with this camera. And I'm curious to see what other cameras come out in NAB. We'll see. I don't know if Panasonic will come out with any more. We'll see. So that's it for this video, guys. And we'll see you on the next one.